Hey, hello, everyone. Wave meteorologist Brian Good on this Tuesday, right? It is Tuesday. I hope you guys are doing well. I am Wave meteorologist. Welcome to Storm Talk on this Tuesday, Mardi Gras, right? We are keeping an eye on an active setup that is going to be unfolding in the upper Midwest, part of the Ohio Valley. And yes, I still think we are looking at the majority of this being a benefit as far as enjoying warm weather. But there are a couple of things that are starting to show up that are starting to raise not just one eyebrow, but at least two eyebrows in this kind of a setup. In addition to that, there are growing signs of winter going to fight back. And the amount of data that is starting to show that one big piece in the longer term that a lot of meteorologists really rely on being more the backbone in a long-term outlook like that, did come in last night, actually, and is starting to hone in on the idea that has been discussed for a while, the idea that we would have a delayed spring and it was going to be a cold March, that kind of idea, but it's almost getting fairly locked in on that idea. So my advice is to try and soak in as much as you can on the warm weather that is coming our way, and it is going to get quite warm. All right, more on that in a second. There's Mardi Gras. It's live. At the moment, relatively quiet, right? But it's only 8:49 in New Orleans right now, so not too great. Well, there's some folks I'm sure have been up all night in the background there. It's always a fun camera to look at, even though we can't always show it on air for good reasons. Okay, let's get into the severe weather side of things, and then we'll kind of get into the other talk here in just a second. We're not officially outlooked by severe weather from the Storm Prediction Center for tomorrow or Thursday, although I do think, from what I've seen so far, that we will get at least a marginal that will come out for Wednesday. I'll explain why that's the case here coming up in a minute, which is not a huge threat, but I do think it does warrant there. But right now, it's a little breezy on the camera anyway at Starlight, Indiana, Huber's Orchard and Winery. Beautiful day, and it is going to be a really nice day today. A little cool this morning, I get it, but that's a good thing. That tells you the air is dry, and when you have cool mornings like that and you got some sun outside, it's a pretty good signal you're going to warm up quite a bit in the afternoon, and we will do just that. At least 10 degrees more than where we are now, getting us well into the 50s. Some spots could even hit 60 for later on today. Thin clouds overhead, nothing overly thick, so I think we'll have a decent amount of sun, and certainly more than we had yesterday, so that in itself will be a nice setup. It's all about the warm front that'll move in tonight that's going to change our weather. So here's the wider view, and the sun's just not coming up, so you're just not able to see the cloud cover there. The limits we have this early in the day with the blog, but you get the idea. The warm front is roughly draped right in through here. Still really the same boundary. It's producing the rain across the deep south, and a lot of wintry weather up here into the north. And it's basically stacked like a cake is how the majority of the system will look over the next 24 to 36 hours. You can see all the winter alerts that are out to the north, the winter storm warnings, blizzard warnings. I mean, they're talking about 2 feet of snow into Minnesota. The Great Lakes area, not far from Chicago. It's a winter storm watch, but I think that'll be some of that's going to be an ice storm warning more than likely. So no doubt, if you have plans to travel by air, there will be some delays that are going to cause likely a backup just because of that alone. Meanwhile, on the severe weather side, and there's a lot of hesitation with this because of the depth of moisture that the system will have. So I totally understand that. So your severe outlook today, it's relatively tame for many of the areas of Texas where the storm is going to be developing today. Just a marginal right there as you head toward the Red River Valley, all the way up into Tulsa. Then tomorrow, it gets to a slight risk as the front moves eastbound. Now, this is where it gets a little odd for tomorrow. Because I do think there will be a band of thunderstorms that'll be snaked over the area. But as you're about to see, it's not a typical line of thunderstorms that are going to roll through here. It'll come through where Indiana may experience showers and storms, and then Kentucky may be lagged a good 2 to 3 hours later before the storms are actually able to work their way slowly through central Kentucky. So that will prolong the rain chance that we'll have in our forecast, but it's not for all areas. It'll be Indiana first and then work its way into Kentucky. Now, what am I watching for really tomorrow? A couple things. First off, the warm front moves in tonight before you wake up tomorrow morning. It will have a band of rain and some thunder with it. That thunder may wake you up, but the acceleration of the warm front is fairly high. So this thing's not going to linger. So your potential to get anything on the severe side is not even really a factor in this kind of a scenario because it moves so fast. It's not even going to have time to really produce much lift and get thunderstorms going. I mean, it's just going to move through fast and then provide much more of a thunderstorm setup with hail across Indiana and Ohio out of our area. But a couple things as it moves on by, there are signs, this was showing up yesterday too, there could be a couple more bands of light showers that may try to form that lag behind the warm front. And that is important. And everything else is probably going to happen for the rest of the day. Because if we end up with those lines of showers that try to form, it will delay the warm up for those of you, especially in Indiana and perhaps along I-64. It'll have a significant number on how warm we can get to in that area. Meanwhile, southern areas of the zone, which will be much of Kentucky, maybe Louisville, will go partly sunny, and you will warm rapidly. So if you are north, chances are your warm-up is going to be a little bit slower than the rest of us will be, but it could end up being quite dramatic. And what I'm noticing in the modeling is that some of the modeling is going with mid-60s for tomorrow, and some certainly has a strong indication that we have a shot at 80 degrees tomorrow. That's a big difference. Now, if we were to surge up to an 80-degree level tomorrow, what will happen more than likely is the atmosphere will get mixed, as we call it, to where it's going to be able to get very windy. I think the wind speeds are already looking strong, but if you get into a setup where you're going to be warmer than modeling says, the mixing potential is going to be more realized, and you're going to end up with stronger wind gusts than realized. So I do think wind gusts that could get up to 55 miles per hour are going to be on the table. And certainly any band of showers that move in later on that evening, tomorrow evening, will enhance that. But two, when you begin to mix down, the dew points will drop enough that it really will cut down the depth of moisture when the thunderstorms back there in Missouri roll in, to where it's going to be really difficult to really have thunderstorms maintain themselves. All the moisture is going to be in the lower layers of the atmosphere and not too much in the column above us. That will limit the growth of the thunderstorms. We call these low top thunderstorm type scenarios. You can get hail with them. You typically don't get much more than that, though, with them, just because the idea that they have their limits. I mean, depending on the amount of moisture, you can get some funnel clouds and those kind of scenarios, but you don't get your massive tornadoes or anything like that. I mean, they're very, very limited on what they can do because of the dry column itself that forms. So really tomorrow, it's really about how much warming do we get and whether or not we mix down the atmosphere to create a warm day. I mean, 80 sounds nice, right? But it'll be very, very windy. And certainly it will lead to some strong wind gusts when the band of showers move in. So there's good and bad on tomorrow. Now, if we end up with a stronger signal, and I'm still looking over the data, if we end up with a stronger signal that 55 mile per hour wind gusts can be reached, even if it's just gradient wind, but certainly with the line of showers that move in tomorrow evening, we'll have an alert day out for that. I think the Weather Service has got a tough one again. We faced this 3 other times, I think, this season, between a severe thunderstorm warning scenario or a high wind warning scenario, which I think is unlikely to get to that level. But I think a wind advisory, in the very least, is likely coming for this kind of a setup just because of the strong gradient wind. But that's their call, not ours. So the good news is we have the potential for a record-breaking warm day. The record is 72. And if those clouds and those second little mini waves of showers get out of the way, that record is history tomorrow. We'll have an easy shot at getting closer to 80 degrees. Then the line of showers move through it. And these are the ones, again, that can allow for those wind gusts to certainly get over that mark of 50 miles per hour when they move through. And they may not come with lightning. So, again, it's showers with a lot of wind. So that's where it becomes difficult for the Weather Service, too, to issue alerts because it's technically not going to be a thunderstorm. So you issue a severe thunderstorm warning for a heavy shower with wind. And that's where it gets a little complex. Sometimes we end up with high wind warnings. I think that's how the last one was issued. I think, if I'm correct, they issued a high wind warning to cover a few hours of time for those showers to move through, for those gusts that could get really high for that potential. And then technically for that, you'd have to get frequent gusts to 60. I don't know if it'll get to that level. It's going to be right at that point of being like a gust of 45, a gust of like 57, 58, right there. Threshold's 58 for severe. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough call on their end. But I do think it is one that we need to be aware of if you're going to be out into the evening hours, especially for your dinner plans. Just be aware there could be some heavy showers with some strong winds moving through the area. And, of course, if they get up high enough, they can cause some power outages. So we'll make sure you guys are aware. So we'll watch this. I want to look over the midday data, and we'll kind of decide if this is going to be needed or not for an alert. But it's got a growing potential based on those scenarios. And if we issue it and it looks like it's going to be a tamer setup tomorrow, we'll just take it right back down again. So we have the ability to do that a lot easier than certainly the Weather Service can do on alerts. But that's the reason why we want to make sure we are trying to keep you guys informed. Not trying to hype things up, not trying to scare you. We just want to make sure that you are paying extra attention to a particular time period and setup that we think deserves attention. And that's when we'll be watching. All right. It moves by. The front washes out. So we will stay warm tomorrow night in the 60s all night long. And then we get into Thursday. Thursday could be nearly as warm, to be honest. I mean, it could get close to 80 as we into Thursday, but the air will be even drier. So that will be more of a wind scenario, but not as strong of a wind because you won't have as much of a dew point in general to work with. So it'll be a little different scenario there. All right, but here's the potential wind gust. This is the warm front moving in late tonight and tomorrow morning. You see where the surge happens, although it may be a little high there for Louisville initially. But you see when the thunderstorms start to roll in, or at least the heavy showers roll in. I don't want to call them thunderstorms yet. You see what happens. Evansville tries to get up to 51, Louisville at 46. Advance this, you see Louisville gets up to about 50 at that point. Lexington's at 58. So you see the issue that will happen when this moves through. And again, it's a very, very similar one that we already went through 2 other times here, where we had to face strong winds that were embedded in just heavy showers and can cause some power outages. But overall, the tree line in general, we've had so many wind events here lately. The trees are getting kind of used to this, to be honest. So the ones that have already been weak and have the ability to fall will likely fall. The only thing that's a little different here is the ground still relatively soggy from the last heavy rain scenario and the flooding. So some of these trees can not just break, they could actually topple over. So those the scenarios we got to keep in mind too. And you won't be able to see that obviously because it'll be in the middle of the night to that point or after dark tomorrow night. And then Thursday's wind, it does get gusty up to 40 miles per hour. But again, we lose the moisture level in the atmosphere. We don't have as much of a gradient wind. So there won't be as much of a high amount of mixing too that'll happen here. So I don't see the wind as being as big of a concern. And I don't see the radar even getting active on Thursday. This may be a dry cold front, but still a benefit of getting a warm day out of it again on Thursday. So at this point, I would say you're going to be able to enjoy Thursday more outside than you will be tomorrow, because tomorrow the wind's just going to be annoying. Okay, so that moves on by, and here's the SIPS analog for severe for tomorrow, and you can see that it's got the outlook a little enhanced there as far as the percentages, and that's about where they've got the slight risk. But you can see why the argument can be made that there would need to be a marginal more east than what they have drawn. So, and that kind of matches the data I've seen so far. So that's why I do think they could. I think it's the idea of thunder and the lack of cape or fuel as far as having thunderstorms is probably what precluded them from drawing it more east just because of that issue. So it's a little iffy scenario for us. And man, that's been a theme in the past few weeks for sure. All right. After this, it is worth mentioning. Okay, real quick. I'm going to get to some of your questions. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to ignore you, Ashley. What time of day would they move in? It would be roughly sunset or just after. Sunset or just after. That's the time period we're looking at, okay? Now, as we head into Friday night, Saturday morning, very interesting setup where we're going to have enough moisture going on, enough lift here at where the cold air is going to have a small overlap. Modeling and GFS, and you're on the same boat on this. I'm trying to hint that there could be some either flurries or spotty freezing drizzle in some areas, or could even be sleet, to be honest. North and east of Louisville, this looks to be like a Carroll, Frankfort, Boone, Grant County kind of zone. I don't know how much in wave country this would even include. And even if it were to fall, I just don't see that it would cause a lot of problems given the warm ground. But it's at least a mention. We'll watch it. Otherwise, relatively chilly on Saturday with the rain. And then we get into this bad boy. As we get into Monday, it's another mature cyclone. Now, this cyclone does weaken as it moves northeast. That's good. The problem is the time of day is daytime. And it's got another strong wind field with it, and it does have thunderstorms with it. Some of the wind gusts are already coming in high with this, even in some cases higher than we have tomorrow. So there's a good chance that Monday is also going to be an alert day to account for that moving through. And I'll show you the SIPS analog on that one here in just a second. After it moves by, then we'll start to see some changes in the weather pattern in the longer term there. There's your SIPS analog for Monday. And you can see where it's trying to, again, pull in the moisture. This would be a pretty good chance to get a slight risk, I think, into the Ohio Valley based on the early numbers. So Weather Prediction Center hasn't added anything yet. I think they've debated it, but they haven't anything yet. But I do think it may be coming as we get a little bit closer in time. Then, I'm not sure I zoomed on that. Then we get into the outlook for March. This is where the polar vortex begins to show signs. You don't really see it until the very last frame, right there. Let me back that up again so you can see it right there over Alaska. Look at Alaska. I can't really draw at the moment. Let me see if I can. Hold on. There we go. Right into here. Look around Alaska. Watch out. It begins to drop down right through there. That is what will likely be the beginning signal of it feeding and bleeding out, if we call it, over areas of the lower 48, setting the stage for a colder setup into March. In fact, the CFS model has it around March 15th, a couple of days, actually about 5 days before the first day of spring. Makes sense? We've been known for this for a while. So that signal is getting strong, and even the long-term Euro wants to hold on to the cooler than normal idea all the way into April. Keep in mind, our normals are going up, are getting warmer, so cooler than normal doesn't mean 15 below zero. Okay, you got to keep that in mind. It's uncomfortably cool. And snow can still fall in these scenarios. So if this pattern holds and it's got a good support system right now, there were a couple pieces that were missing. They're all coming back into line. Then we would be facing snow chances later than normal for this year. Or maybe it's the new normal. I'm not really sure. All right. That's where we stand for now, guys. I hate the run, but I've got so much I got to get ready for, and the clock is ticking for me here, so I got to get going. But I wanted to make sure at least touch base with y'all real quick with an update on where we stand. So if you see any alert day mentions coming out, that's kind of what we're looking at. And again, there's a possibility one for tomorrow, for the evening hours especially, and there's a possibility one certainly for Monday next week. I promise you we'll keep you updated. Stay close to Wave Weather app, because that is where one of the first notifying spots will be when a decision is made. Be safe, guys. Enjoy the warm weather. I don't want to scare you guys from going outside. Get out there and enjoy it. It's going to be beautiful the next couple of days. Just be weather aware.